Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. You're watching In Deep on the Delta, and this is the weekly Delta fishing report for the week of September 9th. As you guys know, I was a little bit out of commission there for about 7 or 8 days. That's the longest I have been off the Delta in probably the last 4 or 5 years. But I'm back, and I'm fishing this week. I've got a lot of information. There's a lot of things coming down the pipe, so we're going to get right into the report. Big thing this week has been stripers. I'm going to start off with a report from Soo Hoo Sportfishing, and Captain Jeff Soo Hoo is back on the water. You know, he runs a salmon boat during the summer. He's been done with the salmon season, and he is back on the Delta. He's been fishing for a couple weeks, and he has found the fish. And Jeff's key to success was finding shallow flats with moving water on them. He is throwing rip baits and swim baits, and he's doing very well. Good numbers of fish. And the fish for Jeff have been from keeper size up to about 5 pounds, but it sounds like his clients have been having a ball. So that's what you want to look for right now for stripers. If you and Jeff is stationed, I think, right around there in Antioch. He says he's not having to move far. Fish are both on the San Joaquin side and on the Sacramento side, and they seem to be pretty plentiful. For those striper guys who are interested in maybe hiring Jeff, I'm going to try to get together with Jeff and do a trip with him next week, and we'll talk to him, we'll interview him. You guys will get to put a face to the name, and if you are thinking about hiring Jeff, you might want to start giving him a call and seeing what's going on, because as soon as the stripers get going, he's going to be a very busy guy. So Soo Hoo Sportfishing reported really good striper fishing. I also talked to Haps Bait and Tackle in Rio Vista. They're reporting an upswing on the stripers. Their clients, a lot of them are trolling Usuris, standard stuff, the Usuri with the worm trailer, out around Decker Island, the power lines. No big deal there. Everybody knows the fish are there every year, but they're starting to come in good numbers. They're reporting a little better class of fish. They reported a fish, a 20-pounder this week. They're also reporting that the bank anglers that are throwing bait out there are catching fish. Also reported that a nice big salmon came off the city dock there. So the salmon are starting to move in. The bait fishermen and the trollers may not be getting as many fish as the guys that are plugging, but they're getting fish, and everything's looking really good for the striper season this year. Also, the reports from Hook, Line, and Sinker and Outdoor Sportsman, they're getting a pretty good indication that the stripers are in there, because all the largemouth bass fishermen are starting to talk about more and more incidental fish, stripers in their mix. So now is the time to dust off that striper gear and get out there, and you're going to have a good time. There's fresh fish moving into the system, and they're going to add to the fun of being out on the Delta. With that, we're going to get right into the largemouth bass report, because this time of year is a transitional time of year, or I thought it was going to be a transitional time of year from summer to fall. Last week we had some fairly tame weather, meaning daytime temperatures were in mid-80s and the evening temperatures were dropping, I think, down into the 50s. So what that did was it dropped the water temperature from about 78 to about 75, and that is a pretty dramatic change. It's not, it's not the fall change. I think this week we're getting 100-degree temps, so the water's probably going to pick up. But just that couple degrees drop in water temperature really threw the largemouth bass into a bite. And what we have to really start thinking about our fall fishing coming up, whether it's a couple weeks away or a month away. Who knows what's going on with the weather out here, and who knows what historically has happened in the past. It may not happen, but if we're going by what happens historically out here, as soon as the fall weather comes in and the temperatures start to cool, especially the nighttime temperatures start to cool, and we start getting that 75, 73, 70, 68 degree water, the fish should go on a big bite. So keep that in mind. And I have got a request to do a fall primer for the Delta. I know a lot of the guys that are fishing the Delta are what we'll call them COVID fishermen, new to the Delta. They've been requesting that I do a video on the baits that they should be using come fall. So I'll hopefully be out next week, and I'm going to film a video to prime you up on what baits you should be dusting off and what baits you might need to pick up at your local stores before that happens. So we'll do that, and I'm also going to do a video on leaders and lines. A lot of the newer guys out here are having trouble figuring out You know, should I use braid? Should I use mono? Should I use fluoro? Should I use a leader? What knots? I'm going to go over all of that. We're going to take a real quick look at this. Oh, here we are. One moment, folks. All right, sorry about that, guys. That's Mark Lassane. He's coming out with me today, and we're going to do a punch video too, and we'll get into that a little later. Where was I? Oh, we're talking about the largemouth bass. I want to start out by giving a shout out to Vince. He's a subscriber, and he sent in a picture of his PB, which was 8-9. Vince came up to the Delta from Clovis, fished for 2 days, and his report was he was junk fishing, fished everything. He fished Thule's, he fished Thule points, island points, rock, weed, everything, and he caught fish doing everything. But the first day it was all, well, not all, but a lot more quality fish. He had several fish in that, you know, nice solid 3-pound plus fish. He had that 8, what would I say, 8-9, good day. Next day it was totally different. He couldn't catch a fish over 2 pounds. The numbers were a lot better, but the size, he just couldn't, you know, couldn't get those big fish to bite. Had a good time catching 1 and 2 pound fish, and that is my suggestion for the next couple of weeks. There's been some nice big fish caught, and they're out here and you can catch them, but the bottom line is you got to come out here and have fun, enjoy the numbers. If you've got friends that don't fish a whole lot, or a grandson or kids, bring them out, put a drop shot on. They're going to catch a lot of fish in that 10 to 13, 14 inch class, and probably the minute you put that 6 or 8 pound drop shot on, they're going to hook a 7 or 8 pounder. I also want to give a shout out to Richard, who got a 5.4, and Richard sent me a nice report. He got this 5.4 on a chatterbait, so chatterbaits are still working. Punching is going on. A lot of plastics out here. I'm throwing worms and creature baits, and I'm not having to move in doing anything else, but we will we'll go over what I did in just a minute. And this is me last week. You guys know that I had a little stomach problem, and I'm blaming it on ingesting a little bit of the algae out here. Well, anyhow, here's a picture of me tying on a big old Jackal Mikey, and check that bait out. And here's the next picture I'm going to show up, and I want to give a shout out to my son, who took that very same bait that I tied on and caught himself a toad just a couple nights ago. So congratulations, Nate. He caught that fish on a Jackal Mikey. If you guys haven't watched the In Deep on the Delta video of the Jackal Mikey, the Stone Cold Killer on the Delta, check that out, and I go over everything that I do using that Mikey to catch some big fish out here. So congratulations, Nate. Let's get into what I did this week. I only got to fish once. I hadn't been out here for about 6 or 7 days, and I started off on Thule's, deep banks, looking for shade, and I was fishing worms, I was punching, I was using creature baits, sprayed grass, I was using green pumpkin, and I was using watermelon, red flake, and gold flake. I was also throwing, I think, a cowboy, and just a lot of plastic junk. But anyhow, I started off knowing the water was dropping, but the water was still warm, and I wanted to fish deeper water with shade that was moving. I fished Thule's, and I just didn't do very well. I caught small fish. I got to a place where I found Thule and rock, and in between where the Thule's were and the rock was back there, I started catching a little better class of fish, and that was during the perfect tide. But I was having fun, like I said, and I wasn't complaining, but I wanted to catch a few bigger fish. So my next move was to a rock bank, and that's where I found the bigger fish, and I found the fish in the trough, and the trough is between the rock and the vegetation. I had about maybe 6 feet of a trough, and the vegetation was in about 5 feet of water, and I started picking up better fish off the rock. And the vegetation that was out there didn't matter if it was, you know, whether it was primrose or you know, any type of submerged vegetation like the Agiridensia out here, you know, the Rardia, things like that. Whatever it is, you're going to fish in the trough and right on the edges of that submerged vegetation. And I was throwing, kind of punching, flipping in there. I was throwing drop shot, and just the bigger fish seemed to be hanging about 6 or 8 feet off the bank in about 5 feet of water right in that vegetation. And that was the key for me. So that's about what I've got this week. I hope you guys are able to get out. It's going to be a little warm. I can tell you that the morning bite and the evening bite are still good, and if you're going to stay out in the evening, I don't suggest staying out all night anymore this time of year, but after dark, as soon as it gets dark, when that topwater bite starts, put on a big wake bait and fish for about a half an hour, 45 minutes. That's the key time to get some really big fish out here. So I'm going to leave you with that. Hope you enjoyed this week's report, and I'll see you guys next week. Thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe. See you guys on the water.